to Season 2 of the Hiring Librarians podcast. We talk about hiring, getting hired, and broader career issues for librarians, archivists, and other folks in information service professions. I'm your host, Emily Week. This podcast is part of my work on the site hiringlibrarians.com, where I've spent more than a decade asking questions, complex, stupid, and everywhere in between, to LIS workers on both sides of the hiring table. This episode was recorded on July 9th, 2025. My guest is Public Services Librarian Kellee Forkenbrock. Hello, podcast listeners. Welcome back to the Hiring Librarians podcast, or welcome for the first time if you've never listened. I hope that you will enjoy the conversation, and I think you probably will. My guest today is Kellee, who has been somebody that I've worked with as somebody who hires librarians, and today we're going to talk primarily about onboarding, so a little bit like what happens after the hire. Kellee, will you start by just introduce yourself pretty briefly?
Absolutely. Emily, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. As I mentioned before we started recording, I'm a huge fan of the Hiring Librarians blog. My name's Kellee Forkenbrock. I am Public Services Librarian at North Liberty Library here in North Liberty, Iowa. We're about 15 minutes away from the University of Iowa campus. So we are a small community, just about 25,000 people. I've worked with this library for 6 years. Before I became a librarian, I spent the first 20 plus years of my career in the private sector doing marketing, project management, sales, and public relations. And I helped interview, hire, and train and onboard employees before my time at the library. But the most significant part of the work that I do as public services librarian is the interviewing, hiring, onboarding and training of our library assistant staff, our part-time staff. So I'm really excited to talk about onboarding because we've recently revamped our onboarding process, and I cannot wait to share it with you.
Great. Before we get there, I want to ask a little bit more about you. How did you make the switch from the private sector to libraries, or what led you there?
Well, so I turned 40.
Uh-huh.
And for people who have turned 40, you kind of have this reflection in some aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was my career. I had been at an employer at that time for about a decade, and I just felt like my career wasn't going in the direction that I wanted it to go. So I had to reflect and think about, well, what do I enjoy doing? My children are older. I have a little bit more freedom to look into other things that I want to do. And I knew that I loved books. At the time, I was on the board of directors for the local library in the town that I live in, which is about 15 minutes away from here. I was also a writer. I write romance under the pseudonym Eliza David. So books, and I'm just a book person. I love books. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get into books. So I started working here at North Liberty Library part-time as a library assistant. And I was also working part-time as a library assistant at another neighborhood library. So I was floating between two libraries. And then at about 4 months in, this would be October of 2019, this position, the public services librarian position, became available, and I interviewed, and here we are 6 years later. It's been fun, especially considering about 6 months into my hiring for this position, COVID hit. So
yeah.
So, just lots of changes. And I like to think of it as an evolution. I like to think of my whole life as an evolution. But specifically in my career, to go from being in the private sector for 20-ish years, doing public relations, sales, and marketing, to doing the work that I love now, I've never been happier in my career. I come to work every day, and I'm human, so some days I don't feel like working like most of us.
Yeah.
But most days I absolutely enjoy the work that I do. I not only enjoy the lives that I touch as a librarian, but I also enjoy the staff members that I get to lead. I get to be a mentor of sorts to the staff that I help manage. And it's really just the best job ever. So I'm so happy that I made that switch.
I'm really happy to hear that, because I feel like I hear Or maybe it's, I personally also feel a little jaded, or like there's a lot of things are tough right now. So
Oh yeah.
I hear a lot of people who are less than satisfied with their library work. So it's really lovely to hear how fulfilling that you are finding it. What sorts of things did you bring with you from the private sector? Like what skills did you find most useful in your work now?
Well, so I've heard that librarians tend to be very introverted,
Uh-huh.
and I am not. I am just an extroverted person in general, which is
Uh-huh.
why I began my career in sales. I started my career with a local newspaper. I was with them for 7 years, and I did advertising and marketing. And this was in the early 2000s. So I
Mm-hmm.
graduated from college in 2000 with my undergrad,
Mm-hmm.
immediately went into newspaper sales, into advertising sales with this newspaper. So there were no online advertising at the time. It was
Yeah.
still print advertising.
Uh-huh.
And right as I was leaving, that's when online advertising started to be a big thing. And I went, and I know it's hard to think of that now, but it
Mm-hmm.
was the hardest sell ever to
Mm-hmm.
get people to put their ads on our website.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just a shift in thinking. So I think that's one thing that I bring to this job is having that experience of just talking to all different kinds of people,
Yeah.
having the ability to really relate with people.
Mm-hmm.
As librarians, especially as public librarians, we're meeting all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we're meeting people who have a myriad of different needs and a myriad of different accesses.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of channeled that work that I did in sales and marketing into the work that I do today, because not only am I helping to manage our library assistant staff, I curate an art gallery,
Mm-hmm.
I host a podcast, I
Mm-hmm.
do a live stream weekly show from our Facebook channel every Monday at noon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on several different boards representing the library. So,
Yeah.
really, my extroversion has really helped, and I really credit that to the work that I did in sales and marketing before.
Yeah.
Having the ability to not only be a representative of the library, but to also be relatable to our patrons and also to my staff members, especially those of whom I'm leading.
Mm-hmm.
That's been very helpful.
Mm-hmm. And you did your MLIS on the job, is that right?
I did. So
Mm-hmm.
about 3 years into my library career, I decided I was ready to go to grad school. I had mulled over
Uh-huh.
getting my project. At one point I was going to go get my MBA, and when I
Mm-hmm.
was still in the private sector, I even thought about the project management
Mm-hmm.
certification because it really did relate to that work. But that was really the first sign when I was kind of on the fence about it. Like, do I really want to go back to school? That was
Mm-hmm.
really looking in hindsight. That was the first sign that I knew I wasn't happy in my career,
Mm-hmm.
because as soon as the opportunity to go to grad school, and I went to grad school at University of Iowa, which again is about 15 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
Once
Mm-hmm.
that opportunity became available, I hopped right on it.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with our city to help fund my tuition there, and it was a lot of juggling. I have two teenagers. I've
Mm-hmm.
been married for 20 years, and both me and my husband work outside the home.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of juggling. On top of that, I was still working 40
Yeah.
hours a week at the library. So there
Yeah.
was no going down to halftime for me. I
Yeah.
had to find a way to merge my school schedule and my work schedule. And that was challenging, but it was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely worth it. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to finish my MLIS in the 2 years designated.
Mm-hmm.
I even, as part of my practicum, I did my practicum at
Mm-hmm.
another site. I did a practicum where I maintained a poetry library.
Mm-hmm.
So not only was I in school working
Yeah.
40 hours a week here, I was also working a practicum for one of my semesters. So it was
That's,
a huge
that's a
undertaking, and
lot.
it is something I will never do again. They caught me at the right
Uh-huh.
life caught me at the right time. That's why I
Uh-huh.
always say,
Uh-huh.
I don't, starting my librarian career at 40 years old is really a testament that life will come for you. You just have to be
Mm-hmm.
open for it at the right time. There's no way I would have been able to juggle grad school and a job 10
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
Yeah.
Just no way. I mean, my
Yeah.
kids were younger. I
Yeah.
wasn't as focused. And quite frankly, I wasn't in a field where I was fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, it really did come at the right time. So yes, I did graduate with my master's in 2023. So it was 1 year into my library career. I
Mm-hmm.
graduated with my master's in 2023, and I'm still doing learning through other library courses online, of course,
Yeah.
because I'm not doing that traveling anymore. It's like just stay put. If I can't learn it from a computer, I ain't gonna learn it. But yeah, it was a humbling experience, and yeah, I'm just so glad, just so happy that this is how life panned out for me.
I can really tell when you talk about it how much it lights you up, and it's really nice to see. So maybe let's start talking about why we're here
Yes,
today. So you,
onboarding.
yeah, so onboarding. You said you had reimagined, or your whole onboarding process at your work had recently been revamped. Do you want to talk a little
Yes,
bit about that, why that happened, and maybe that process?
absolutely. So, one of the things that I started on years ago was revamping our training manual.
Hmm.
When I started, the onboarding process was meet all your staff members. This is how you work this computer. Let's go out to lunch and talk and hit the ground running.
Hmm.
Now, for someone like me, I'm at the point in my career where it's like, okay, as long as I know where all the working gears are, I can kind of hop into it and I'm not afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
What I discovered and what I've known throughout my career of management
Hmm.
and of leading, I like to say leadership instead of management because
Hmm.
I don't want to manage people. I can barely manage myself. So I don't want to manage others. I want to
Uh-huh.
lead. I want to be a leader. So what I learned was that not everybody can learn to work that way. Some
Mm,
people do need the step by step. Some
yeah.
people need that hand holding, which is, no discredit to them, but
Mm,
it's about working with different people and working in the ways that best serve them. So
mm,
I started taking a course. As I mentioned, after my master's, I found that I wanted to learn even more about librarianship without having to spend thousands of dollars to
yeah.
go to a grad school program again.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I found some online coursework through the University of Wisconsin Madison. They
Mm,
have a robust library school, as most of your listeners probably know who are librarians.
mhm.
And they had a course on onboarding for library managers. So I asked my director if I could take that course. It was about an 8 week intensive course. It was all online and it was self-paced course modules. So I just made sure that it was usually on Fridays when the library, kind of died down a little bit. I would
Mhm.
use every Friday for 8 weeks to work on my coursework for onboarding. And at the end, I was able to produce a brand new onboarding plan for new hires.
Mhm.
So it was really just about just integral pieces, working with the training manual, revamping that. That was one of the first things I did when I was hired as a public services librarian.
Mhm.
Then also reviewing our interview questions. I've gotten into a scheduled rhythm with my library director and my assistant library director, where
Mhm.
we look through the interview questions once a year to make sure that these are still working. And so then there was always just this onboarding piece that I felt was just, it was okay, but it
Mhm.
was a sandbox. There
Right.
was so much that could be built. And that coursework with the University of Wisconsin Madison, that 8 week intensive coursework helped me to create a complete onboarding
Mhm.
package.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I can go into a bit about what that looks like. So after the interview is over and you've offered the position to to your new employee, we typically send out an email connecting our HR department, confirming the wage, confirming the start date, all of those key details to say, congratulations, welcome to the North Liberty Library. That's kind of the very formal email that I send out so that they know how much they're getting paid, what the follow up is, because we do require drug screen and background check.
Mhm.
So it's always a preliminary offer based on those two background checks,
Mhm.
and the drug screen. So once they've gone through that screening process with our HR director and the HR director says they're good to go, that's when the official onboarding begins.
Uh-huh.
And with that onboarding, it starts with an email. And the email that, and this was an email template that I learned to build in this coursework at the University of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
It includes, the five W's, the who, what, where, why, and the how.
Mm-hmm.
And how's not a W, it's an H. But
Got a W in it.
it has a
Ends
W
in a
in it.
W.
That's what throws me off. But then it also, at the end, what was a nice touch that I learned in this coursework was that it includes a picture of our staff.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is just very welcoming because we
Yeah.
get this formal email out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's about HR and background checks and W-2 forms and all that other stuff. But I get to send out this very fun email after that
Mm-hmm.
that really welcomes them in from the beginning. And it also includes a breakdown of what the first day will be like so that there are no surprises.
Yeah. That's
Because it's so nerve-wracking to come into a new job.
uh-huh.
You're not sure what the culture is. I mean, most of our interviews happen here at the library, so you get a feel for the library. Most of the people we interview have at least been a patron of the library, so
Yeah.
that's helpful. But including in that onboarding email, kind of a breakdown of what the first day looks like is so important. So we
Mm-hmm.
send that email out. That's the first part of the onboarding process. The second part of the onboarding process is when they arrive, I have a folder ready for them. The folder contains my business card, which on the back of my business card, I write down my cell phone number.
Mm-hmm.
Because something I discovered very recently, my son is a recent high school graduate,
Mm-hmm.
and he is working for a company now that he's hoping to continue to work for as he goes into college in next month.
Uh-huh.
And I asked him, so what's your boss's name? And he told me his boss's first name. I said, what's their last name? I don't know. Okay. So he needed to take a day off because we're going on a family
Mm-hmm.
vacation. I
Uh-huh.
said, have you told your boss? Can you email your boss and let, well, they didn't give me a business card.
Uh,
Completely floored me because in this packet, which is
uh-huh.
the second part of the onboarding process to circle back, I
Mm-hmm.
put my business card in there and I put my cell phone number on the back. And I say, you can call or text me at any time
Mm-hmm.
because I want you to know that I'm here to lead you. I
Mm-hmm.
know that this is a new environment for you. I want you to be able to contact me for whatever.
Yeah.
Now, I can count on one hand the number of times my employees have called my cell phone, but
Yeah.
to have that is important because they need to know that they have a connection. So
Mm-hmm.
that folder has that. It has a training schedule for the week. So we have written down
Mm-hmm.
every day that they're working this week because we've already confirmed the days that they're working in previous conversations before they've arrived. So if they're working Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because these are part-time workers,
Mm-hmm.
working Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I have a full agenda for each. Part of this agenda includes tours of our facility.
Mm-hmm.
Our library is fortunate enough to be connected to the rec center.
Mm-hmm.
So our city's rec center and our city's public library are all in one building. So
Mm-hmm.
we do a tour of the building. They do a series of one-on-ones with every full-time staff member. So every full-time
Uh-huh.
staff member
Uh-huh.
gets 15 to 30 minutes
Uh-huh.
of one-on-one time with this new employee.
How many
That is crucial.
how many full-time staff do you have?
We have, I think, 10 full-time
Okay.
staff members,
Uh-huh.
7 part-time staff members.
Uh-huh.
So we're a small library, but for a small library, we have a very robust staff.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep. So they have their one-on-ones.
Mm-hmm.
We also do a review of the training manual. I like to do the review of the training manual. I'm kind of old school. I like to go through the training manual. I always tell them this is the most boring part of the orientation. You'll
Yeah.
have to listen to me
Uh-huh.
talk about this manual for about 40 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
we go through the manual. I also make sure that they're set up with their workstation within the
Mm-hmm.
first day.
Yeah.
Because I work behind the scenes with IT. Because while they're doing their drug screens, which usually takes about 3 to 5 business days,
Mm-hmm.
I'm working in the background to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that when they arrive, they have access to email, they
Mm-hmm.
have access to training modules, they have access to the drive that all of our employees use. They have access to our SharePoint. It is so important with onboarding, and some things happen. Things happen. Sometimes technology fails us. It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the effort to make sure that this person has a full schedule of what we're doing and also has access to the things that they need is really reassuring.
Yeah.
It's really reassuring. So that's the second part is the folder with the manual and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. Other parts of our onboarding that we do, that's also part of the schedule, is what I call pink slip training. Now,
Mm-hmm.
pink slip training is that we literally have a basket of pink slips of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a stack of books and
Mm-hmm.
DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, the first thing I would like you to do is I want you to put these books in order on the cart, just on the cart. The next thing I'd like you to do is take this stack of pink slips. I want you to take the book, go out into the library. By this time, we're about day 3 or 4
Uh-huh.
into the onboarding. Onboarding for me typically takes about 3 weeks. I like to do it 3 weeks and then I send you off because
Mm-hmm.
I want an intensive onboarding experience. I want you
Mm-hmm.
to have access to me as much as possible during that time because again, I do have other things to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that I dedicate that 3 weeks of onboarding to you and I really getting this job down.
Mm-hmm.
So they go out and pink slip shelf. They take the book, put it where they think it belongs on the shelf, and then they slip a pink slip that kind of flaps in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So that I go through all the stacks, check the pink slips to make sure that they are familiar with the library because we do not follow Dewey Decimal.
Oh, uh-huh.
We follow the BISAC system,
Uh-huh.
which categorizes books by subject.
Yeah.
So it's very user friendly,
Mm-hmm.
but as a library professional, and most of the people that we hire
Mm-hmm.
have some library experience, whether
Uh-huh.
they worked in their school library or if they were a volunteer at a public library, they have some library
Uh-huh.
experience, but they may not have experience with BISAC. So really anticipating, that's a big part of onboarding is anticipating where the hangups might be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why pink slip shelving is a big part of our onboarding process. And I don't move forward until the employee feels like they're ready to move forward. So
Yeah.
even though I say the onboarding is 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I might have someone who's ready to go after 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I might have someone that needs 4 weeks. And I feel that as a leader, as their leader,
Mm-hmm.
and as their direct support, that's exactly what I'm here to do is to lead and support. So
Mm-hmm.
if that means I need to adjust my schedule for an extra week so
Mm-hmm.
that they feel secure in their job to
Mm-hmm.
have that fourth week of onboarding for support, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try to, try to pigeonhole you into this set schedule. It's
Mm-hmm.
really about that check-in. So we do a check-in every week of onboarding. At the end of the week, I say, how are things going? How are you feeling? What do you think about the job so far? And then we move into the next week. So onboarding is flexible. The typical onboarding schedule for us is about 3 weeks. And those are the main elements of that onboarding schedule.
Mm-hmm. I love the ways that you're talking about it in terms of it being the ability to welcome and support new staff members.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think of onboarding as it's kind of also an indoctrination into like the processes and the culture of the workplace. And I think it seems much nicer to talk about it more in terms of what you're doing for the staff member, for the staff member that's coming on board, rather than fitting them into the organization as it exists.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, this interruption is to let you know that if you're someone who hires, someone who wants to learn how to hire, or if you're in charge of professional development for your library, I've put together an online, self-paced training on hiring basics, which you can purchase through Navarre Library Services. You can learn more by going to hiringlibrarians.com/classes. Primarily, you've been onboarding library assistants and aides, or
Yep. So we call them pages. So
pages.
I typically onboard pages and library assistants. Right now, we have 7 library assistants on staff,
Mm-hmm.
and we have one page who
Mm-hmm.
comes 3 days a week. And I think the difference in how they're onboarded is that it's a little less intensive with our page
Yeah.
because our pages are just simply shelving. They may do some claims checks, meaning they're checking on books that patrons have claimed that they've returned or claim they never borrowed, but we
Mm-hmm.
can't find them in the library. So we send them our pages on a kind of a scavenger hunt to find those books. But the more intensive version of the onboarding is with our library assistants. I say for a library page, probably about a week of onboarding, maybe
Mm-hmm.
2.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the library assistants, we probably double that.
Do you talk specifically about working with patrons or philosophies about customer service?
Oh yeah, I am a big customer. I mean, based on again my work in the private sector, customer service is a big
Uh-huh.
part of what I try to impart on our assistant staff. In fact, we do have a monthly staff meeting that is just our part-time staff.
Uh-huh.
And we have that monthly meeting. And part of the monthly meeting is that I read from a book. It's called The Customer Rules.
Hmm.
The author's name escapes me, but he used to be the CEO of Disney.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fantastic book.
Hmm.
It's a little blue book,
Yeah.
and it's called The Customer Rules. And it has 22 rules in it, and I
Hmm.
just circulate them, and I say, this is the customer rule for this month. And then
Hmm.
I just read, I just kind of tweak it a bit to fit librarianship. But yeah, customer service, I always tell, one of the things that we say in the training manual upon onboarding is that you, as a library assistant, are the front facing representation of the library.
Hmm.
Not every patron is going to see our directors. Not every patron is going to see me. Not every patron is going to see our family services or adult services librarian. But every patron will see you. They will
Hmm.
see you at the front desk. They
Hmm.
will see you in the stacks.
Hmm.
You are the person that they'll probably call on if they need a question. So
Hmm.
it's important that one basic thing that we talk about in onboarding. Every person who walks through the building gets a hello, good
Hmm.
morning, good
Hmm.
afternoon, good evening. Now, again, our building, we're connected to a rec center. So
Hmm.
we do have some traffic where you can tell they've got their gym bag, they've got their running shoes,
Yeah.
they're heading to go get
Yeah.
their workout on. They're not
Uh-huh.
stopping in the library.
Hmm.
That does not mean we do not say hello to them,
Hmm.
because it is very likely that that same person, if you say hello to them on their way to the gym, they have
Hmm.
to walk back through. They may stop in the library for a moment.
Hmm.
They've done their workout, they've ticked that box. But now they're looking at the library differently because you welcomed them as soon as they came in, knowing they were going to another destination. So customer service is the nucleus of everything
Yeah.
that we do as far as onboarding and training for our library assistant staff.
I've never read that book, but I've worked in places that have used that
Mhm.
model for their service, and I know it's good. The one that I like is called Zingerman's. You know, Zingerman's is it's a grocery store or a specialty food store in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and they
Okay.
have Zingerman's Guide to Giving Great Service. And I used to work at grocery stores. That was
Oh,
my pre.
okay. Adding that to the book list. Yes.
They also do training, customer service training, and Zing Train as their training model, or they used to. I think they still do. But I always really liked. I worked for grocery stores, so because they were a
Yeah.
grocery store, they really liked what they did. What kind have you gotten feedback from folks that you've onboarded about the process?
We actually in the first page of our training manual, we
Hmm.
have three rules that we say. We
Hmm.
say always ask questions. And the second thing we say is you can give feedback. Just because you just started here today does
Yeah.
not mean you don't get to give feedback.
Uh-huh.
So I always encourage feedback, even from our newest hires. I always
Uh-huh.
encourage feedback.
Uh-huh.
We just recently did a review of our training manual, and I included two of our senior library assistants to assist us with the review. So
Hmm.
I put it on a Google Doc, sent them the link. I said, we're going to
Hmm.
break this down into 3 weeks of review. Review these pages on week one, these pages on week two, these pages on week three. As you find time in your schedule, just
Hmm.
do some review. And not only is that feedback valuable, because these are people that I hired myself that have been with us for 3, 4, 5 years, but it empowers them because now they're on the other end.
Hmm.
They've had seen this manual before. They were hired here 3, 4, 5 years ago, but
Hmm.
now they get to have a voice into what the next hire gets to see. So
Yeah.
it's a great empowerment tool.
Hmm.
And your employees, they are a vast resource of knowledge.
Yes.
My library assistants know more about the people that come in and out of this library than I ever
Yeah,
will,
absolutely.
because
Yeah.
they are the front facing folks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's so key.
Hmm.
The people that are talking to your patrons every day are the people that can really tell you what's needed.
Yep.
Pretend I was a manager and I came to you and I said, Kellee, I need to, I can only change one thing about my onboarding process. What one thing should I change?
If a manager of another library, just a manager to manager talking,
Yeah.
one thing to change about your onboarding process, I have to come back to customer service. I have to
Mm-hmm.
come back to, and I call it patron service.
Mm-hmm.
I would say find a way to make sure that they understand that their number one job is to make sure every single person who enters this building is welcome. And it
Mm-hmm.
sounds so simple in practice.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, we do have, we have this stereotype that library folks are introverted. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes library people will be head down in the book, in the computer, at the
Mm-hmm.
front desk,
Mm-hmm.
and not say hi when people come in. Sometimes that's the hardest part of the job for
Mm-hmm.
some of our
Mm-hmm.
library folks is to lift their heads up and say hello to a complete stranger or someone
Mm-hmm.
they've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would also say talking about conflict resolution is
Mm-hmm.
very key,
Mm-hmm.
especially for our public librarians.
Mm-hmm.
Public librarians, unlike other librarians, when you're a school librarian, you're dealing with students.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Public librarians, we don't know who's coming through the door at any
Yeah.
given time. You
Uh-huh.
don't know what you're going to come into.
Uh-huh.
So another big part of our onboarding process is the conflict resolution
Mm-hmm.
piece.
Mm-hmm.
We were fortunate enough to have a social worker, a student from the College of Social Work, come in many years ago
Uh-huh.
and create a three-level conflict resolution plan that all of our employees use.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really helpful because it teaches you that if there's a group of people being too loud or if there's a
Mm-hmm.
disruption. Now, again, when I say disruption, I mean something that does not involve law enforcement. We're talking about just simple, everyday disruptions that happen in public spaces.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Having that three-tier plan and really driving that home for them teaches
Mm-hmm.
them that it's not about being punitive.
Mm-hmm.
It is about connecting with
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
So turning that conflict resolution piece into an opportunity to connect with others is
Mm-hmm.
a big thing that I think that needs to happen more so with onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Being less punitive and being more understanding,
Yeah.
especially as public librarians,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't know who all is coming in,
Mm-hmm.
but we want them all to feel welcome,
Mm-hmm.
even when they're being disruptive.
Yeah.
Big part of the third part of that plan is when the person comes back. If we have to tell someone to leave for the day, we
Mm-hmm.
make it a point that the next time they come back into the library, we check in with them and say, "Hey, I'm happy to see you back here today. I'm
Yeah.
hoping we can have a better day today."
Yeah. I think that is such a key part of work in public libraries is you were talking so much about customer service.
Mhm.
And customer service is one thing when things are going right, but things can also go wrong at the public
Yeah.
library. It can be really hard, I think, for staff. You know, sometimes patrons aren't nice to you and
No,
like
they're not.
they might have whatever else is going on. One of the key things is just acknowledging like, you know, sometimes it's difficult. Here is the plan when it's difficult. Here is
Mhm.
what we can do to help support you or help you support yourself. So let's think about the other side of that equation. Do you have advice for people that it's their first day of work, you know, no matter what their onboarding plan is? Do you have advice for how people can approach a new job?
I always say if you have an opportunity like we provide to do one-on-ones with
Mhm.
the rest of the library staff, always ask at the end of those one-on-ones, or if you even if you have an informal, just talking, for example. One question you can ask is, as a library assistant or as whatever your job title is, how can I be of support to you?
Mhm.
It's just a great way to forge connection.
Mhm.
It's a great way for you as a new hire to learn more about the library and possibly find yourself in a position where you can, find new skills.
Mhm.
I've had the pleasure of having three of our library assistants since I've been here move on to other positions in the library.
Mhm.
And it's just wonderful to see that this person who, first came in very
Yeah.
shy as a library assistant is now one of our full-time staff members. It's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. And I think that getting to that place starts with a question that you ask your colleagues. How can I support you in my role? Not
Mm-hmm.
how I can do your job.
Right.
How can I support you
Yeah.
in my own role
Mm-hmm.
in this library?
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a question that would give you a lot of advice for how to work and what to focus on. So I think we've talked a lot about onboarding. Maybe we wrap up. I don't know. Do we want to circle back to anything or any advice for people that are looking for work or people that are hiring?
Well, I will say, number one piece of advice I have for anyone who's looking for work is
Mm-hmm.
to try to visit the library that you want to work
Yeah.
for as
Yeah.
a patron.
Mm-hmm.
Check and see how you're treated as a patron at the library, especially if you've never been to the library before.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have been to the library before, be a little bit more cognizant on your next visit
Mm-hmm.
as to how you're treated as a patron.
Mm-hmm.
Does someone say hi to you when you walk in the door? Is there a library person that you can access if you have a problem? If
Mm-hmm.
you have a problem, is the librarian helpful? Do they seem like it's an inconvenience?
Mm-hmm.
Take note of that before you go work for the library,
Mm-hmm.
because trust me, you go into a library and if you are experiencing less than stellar customer service, you will not be able to change that on your own.
Right.
That is a culture issue.
Yeah.
So being aware of the culture of customer
Uh-huh.
service
Uh-huh.
is so important before you work for a library. So
Yeah.
go visit that library as a patron. Try
Mm-hmm.
your best. If you're doing some remote, if you're moving to another place and you're
Yeah.
trying to get a library job someplace else, find a way to interact with that library, whether that's
Yeah.
attending an online event, see how they run it. You can tell a lot about customer service from a library
Mm-hmm.
based on an online event if you
Mm-hmm.
can't physically get to the library. But that would be my first piece of advice for people looking for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then my best piece of advice for people who are out there leading library assistants,
Mm-hmm.
leading library staff,
Mm-hmm.
is to listen to your staff members.
Mm-hmm.
They are human beings just like you.
Mm-hmm.
You are here to lead, not manage.
Mm-hmm.
Change your words around what that looks like. It's
Mm-hmm.
not management, this is leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to create pathways for your employees to continue in library service, because just like you said, Emily, librarianship is a hard field right now. There are many, many, many adversaries against our industry.
Yeah.
So if you want good workers and
Mm-hmm.
you have to treat them well. You have
Yeah.
to treat them like humans and understand that they have lives, they have needs, they have worries, they
Yeah.
have to make choices just like you. So be kind,
Yeah.
as all librarians say, be kind.
I really support that message. That's wonderful. And maybe that is a good message to end on. Let's be kind to each other. Well,
Please.
Kellee, thank you so much for your time and for all of your advice and your feedback that you've given. Kellee, there's a regular feature that we do on the blog called Further Questions, and Kellee is one of my people who hire library workers who answers more in-depth questions about aspects of library hiring.
Yes.
I'm just so
Love
happy
that. Love the blog.
Thank you, Kellee. Thank you for listening, and thank you to my guest, Kellee Forkenbrock. And now, the fine print. One more plug for my Hiring Basics training. You can find a link to register by going to hiringlibrarians.com/classes. If you'd like to support this podcast and my work on hiringlibrarians.com, you can find my PayPal by visiting the site, or you can go to patreon.com/hiringlibrarians. I'd also love to hear from you about any little thing at all. You can email me at hiringlibrarians@gmail.com. The theme tune was written and performed by Matthew Travers. Thanks, Matthew.